And I will also thank all of you for great questions. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, the statement of task and the challenge that comes to the Planning Committee comes from the sponsors. So in developing that statement of task, they have put quite a bit of thought and energy into thinking about what would they like this workshop to do and try to accomplish. So we've invited them to give comments here at the very end, and we're going to start with Paul Coates.
Thanks very much. So I'm from the NIH, and I am speaking on behalf of a number of very interested organizations at the NIH who expressed interest from the very beginning in the evolution of this concept, bringing it to fruition as a workshop. And I think I can say easily on behalf of all of us that this has accomplished what we hoped. And we're very excited about the opportunities that this presents to a broad community, but specifically for the NIH. We're about research, and so I will try as hard as I can to limit my remarks to that end of the spectrum. There are three basic comments that I'll make. One is about evidence, the other is about uncertainty, and the third is about complexity. And these have been recurring themes throughout the meeting, and they all reflect on issues related to research needs. So gathering evidence is what we do. What I think about in this context is that there are two kinds of evidence that emanate from the discussions today. One is, what's the evidence for a special, distinctive, other nutritional requirement? And Patsy sort of put this in my head a long time ago with that slide of hers. There's a normal curve, or a curve for the general population, and then there are some hypothetical curves that might overlay or be distinct from that one. And that gathering that evidence is key. So that's a research effort to gather that evidence. I would posit that we have the evidence in some cases. We don't really have the evidence in other cases, except from perhaps a rather narrowly focused point of view. But we need to get that evidence in order to then answer the second question. So does it make a difference? If you intervene with something, what's the evidence that it makes a difference? It's not curing a disease, we know that, but it may assist a lot in patient-reported outcomes, clinical outcomes, but these all require definition, and I do believe that we are a long way to identifying what those are. Call them biomarkers, but call them something that you will be striving for as you're trying to estimate the impact of an intervention on an outcome. So that's one, that's related to evidence. Entirely related to that is certainty or uncertainty. We've never met a DRI that wasn't uncertain in some way. What I believe we've done over the last couple of iterations of DRI efforts is to acknowledge and admit the uncertainty associated with those. It's always been there, but it was hard to say we don't know as much as we need to know. I think we're getting a little better at being able to do that. Grade and other mechanisms that are used to assess the quality of intervention trials, observational studies, animal studies, help us a lot in assessing the uncertainty of our estimates. And I want to acknowledge that that's a key component of what we think about moving forward from the NIH perspective. The third is complexity, and complexity is all about what we were talking about. I used to be in the inborn errors field, and I always used to think, boy, what a great paradigm for thinking about chronic disease. You know, move from the simple to the very complex. So it turns out that inborn errors of metabolism are not so simple. And in some respects, they're the harbinger of what we look forward to as we're applying principles of nutritional management from inborn errors to broader chronic disease indications. And I do believe that innovation throughout all of this is key. Innovation in identifying people at risk, in strategies for assessing the impact of interventions, and just the whole array of data that are needed to be able to come to grips with what are we going to do in diseased populations. As somebody said, 50% of us have something or other, and some of us have a lot. Big data needs, all are issues of great interest to the NIH. So thanks for stimulating a conversation.